Thanks so much for joining me this evening. I'm always humbled and grateful when a group of parents can give up some time and spend it learning about the game, asking questions, and engaging in respectful dialogue. You could be doing anything in the world, anywhere in the world, and I'm just grateful that you're here sharing this time with me here tonight. Uh, we're going to chat about some global CMSA initiatives that we've got going on right now, as well as in specific what you can expect from the U12s and U13s from CMSA this upcoming outdoor season. So in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, and the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. Tonight, I am a one-human show, so if there's some moments that I pause and I'm letting people in or engaging in questions and such, please bear with me. If there are any questions, please put them into the chat. You can see that I've sent a message in the chat to get things going, and I will engage through there throughout the presentation when I can. There's also a reactions button that you can give the thumbs up, give the surprise face, smile, clap, heart, whatever you like, as we move through the presentation tonight. I'm just going to let this one final person in, and then away we go. And then hopefully there's not too many other interruptions. So, quick introduction about myself. Who am I? Why am I sitting here? And why am I the one on this side of the screen with the camera on? My name's Jordan Stewart, and I'm the CMSA technical leader. And really what that is I'm responsible for league oversight. I'm responsible for coach education. I'm responsible for some of the AYSL operations. I'm responsible for other global initiatives that CMSA has going on. And really a diverse work portfolio, but everything that I do is always centered around what's best for the player. I've coached players, it should actually say about U6 to university, and I'm the former Alberta Soccer regional coach for Southern Alberta and the Alberta Recs director. So when I was working for Alberta Soccer, my primary portfolios of work were around player development, district outreach, and coach education. And it really gave me a chance to get involved with districts, to see what they need, and to help support them to be better and drive the game forward. I've got experience working in just about every single level of the game in Canada, from grassroots club soccer to professional academies to youth national team development systems to colleges and universities and the outreach system. So especially here in Alberta, I've pretty well worked at every level that's available. And I've got a lens that typically is potentially a little unique for this province. So I want to just quickly mention some important CMSA information. Photo IDs. All players U11 and above need to get their photo ID and their player card done. So that can be done two ways. One, you can book an appointment at the CMSA office. You can go online at calgaryminersoccer.com and do that now. Or you can head up to the Genesis Center tomorrow from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. where we'll be on site producing photo IDs and engaging with members there. If you want to give us some logo feedback, that would be great. We're currently exploring a brand refresh and we're trying to get some parent feedback. So if you do have a cell phone with you right now, you can hold up the camera to that QR code and it should take you straight to the survey to give us some feedback and to help guide us. And lastly, we are back to hosting the Calgary Cup. It'll be from July 29th to August 1st this year. And the age groups are U9 plus. We've got interest from across Canada, from teams wanting to join us, Winnipeg, Montreal. There's teams out of BC at all ages that we think it's going to be a really, really great time. And we'd love to welcome you this summer within that tournament. So if you're interested, please, again, go to calgaryminersoccer.com for more info. Or reach out to info@calgaryminersoccer.com. So I'm just going to start tonight with some of the principles that we're operating under. And really this is to try and frame the discussion tonight and really have an awareness and a lens of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. So we believe that the game should be accessible for everyone, whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach, whether you're a referee, whether you're a player, or all of the above. We need to make sure that the game is as accessible as possible all the time. We want to make sure that we're inclusive of a very, very diverse Calgary and surrounding area community, and that we're welcoming them with open arms to the beautiful game to share with us here in Calgary. We want to make sure that the game is safe, both physically and psychologically. So the environments that our players are in, the environments that our coaches are producing, and the environment that we interact with each other is safe as well. And I don't shy away from difficult conversations. So if there are some that have to happen tonight, that's not a problem. But please make sure that it's respectful, and I will respect you as well. And lastly, really the core piece, we have to enjoy the game. We have to enjoy what we do, and making sure that we operate in an enjoyable manner and that the game is enjoyable is really, really important to us. So when I was hired about 18 months ago on a very small contract, really it was to come in and evaluate what CMSA was doing and to implement change to realign with Canada Soccer in the direction of the game, as well as best practice research. So I started to look first at what we were doing. And I looked first at player numbers, and you'll see the bar chart on your screen there that's got player numbers from about the past 3.5 years. You'll see some really tall bars, you'll see some really short bars, but these are the trends. And so from when that data starts until now, you'll see an overwhelming decrease in players at numerous age levels, all tiers and all genders, apart from the U7s to U9s. So this tells me that we're doing a great job of attracting kids and families to the game, but are we doing a great job of retaining them? And so that's the question that I'm working on, is to try and change some of these trends and to try and improve them through my tenure at CMSA. And someone for sure is going to say or think, well, really just all the bad players leave, all the players that don't love soccer, that their families don't love the game, they're the ones who are leaving. That's why you're seeing attrition rates. And that would imply that really only we've got the good players left. And that's simply not the case in Canada, because statistically, we're the worst in the industrialized nation at producing elite level soccer players. And while this data is about 10 or 12 years old, and there will be more professionals now with the Canadian Premier League in place, you'll see that we do a great job at registering lots of players, but our chances of becoming a pro are very, very slim. So the question was asked is our current sporting system facilitating both the involvement and retention of players, but also the development of top level players? And the answer was simply no. So change had to happen. And so from that change, we decided to start with a 3-year plan. And this technical plan is available on Calgary Minor Soccer's website. You can go there and find it. And I wanted to provide a quick overview of what it is, what we're trying to do, and where we're at with some of the key pieces. The technical plan is around 3 different spheres. Sphere 1 is around govern. And as you can see, we're completing bits, we're ticking them off, and we're trying to move the game forward in the correct manner to put both development and enjoyment first of all participants. You'll see some pieces are ongoing, and that's just something that we want to start and continue on a regular basis throughout the seasons. As we move into the develop sphere, you'll see some of these bits are delayed, partially due to COVID, partially due to workload, partially due to just trying not to implement too much change too quickly. We know that change is difficult. We know that a traditional model of sport is quite ingrained in Calgary, and we know that it's going to take some work to change some of the behaviors and attitudes that a lot of people have around the game here. But as you can see, there's some pieces there that we've completed and are ongoing. Don't worry about taking too many notes. What I'm going to do is try to record this and upload it to YouTube, and make sure that if you want, you can hit pause, you can go through this, and you can dive in a little bit more detail. And lastly, the final sphere is the grow sphere. We know that we need to keep growing the game. And that's that grow word can be interpreted in many different ways. But some of the key ways that we're looking at is the Empower Her Committee. So it's really the Women and Girls in Soccer Committee to explore opportunities to grow our Calgary girls and women through soccer, and also engaging with new Canadian programs and newcomer societies to connect those communities back to potentially their cultural communities, and allow them to get settled in Canada and use soccer as a tool to do that. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk tonight a little bit about the Canadian soccer player pathway. And obviously, if you're on tonight, you're either a coach, you're a parent, you're an aunt, maybe you're a sibling, but you should have some awareness and knowledge about what the player pathway actually looks like. And I guarantee you someone out there right now is thinking, well, wait a minute, a pathway would suggest a road, would suggest it's one directional, it flows, there's stages or checkpoints that we move through. And really that's not the case within sport, because sport has got very non-linear development, and we can go up, we can go down, we can go sideways, we can go forwards and backwards. And really this diagram does that justice. So to dive into it a little bit, you'll see 3 layers here in terms of active start, fundamentals, and learn to train. That's probably where the majority of our children on this call tonight operate. Lots in the learn to train, U12, U13 kind of areas, and moving into either community soccer for life, competitive soccer for life, or into those developmental leagues in the train to train stages. And if you want to know kind of who operates where and with what and how things operate here in and around Calgary, we've got Cmsa operating in levels 1, 2, and 3. So our active start, our fundamentals, and our learn to train. And we also operate within the Soccer for Life community and competitive buckets. You'll see arrows that'll go between them. So it's to suggest that just because you end up in the competitive bucket to begin with, or competitive area, doesn't mean that you can't transition into community, and vice versa. You'll also see the AYSL here in the train to train as a developmental league and a standards-based league. There's lots of information on Calgary Minor Soccer's YouTube, on parent chats that have been delivered over the last year and a half. And if you would like more info on the AYSL, I would suggest starting there and then reaching out if you need more. From there, players typically move into Rex programs and the Whitecaps pre-MLS Academy here in Calgary, in that learn to compete stage. So you've got U15 Team Excel programs and Pro Club academies, and that's who operates within Calgary here. They're both operated by the Whitecaps organization right now, and they look to feed players through into youth national teams, into the Girls Elite Rex program in Vancouver, and then also into the MLS Academy program in Vancouver. And should players keep progressing through this excellent stream, they'll end up into senior national teams, U20 national teams, professional football with MLS clubs, or professional football with CPL clubs. And here in Calgary, it's Cavalry FC. Most players will look to transition into Soccer for Life in the community, which is the senior levels of Cmsa and Calgary Women's here in Calgary. And they also operate within the competitive areas as well. And then there's also opportunities within the university and semi-pro kind of pathways with U Sports, the Canadian College Athletics Association, so the ACAC here in Alberta, and the NCAA. And then your kind of semi-pro kind of summer leagues for those university students as well are the USL2 and UWS groups that are operating here, and I believe shortly potentially a WPSL franchise as well. So I'm going to pause there for 2 seconds. I'm going to check the chat because I see a little orange dot, and I'm going to see if there is a question in there. Did the trend of players leaving occur due to the pandemic? The highest rate of attrition seems to be during the pandemic years. It's a great question. It's a great observation. The pandemic certainly didn't help bring players back to the game or retain them in the game. That's for sure. Even prior to the pandemic, we were losing players, potentially not at the same rate, but the downward trend was still there. It's certainly gotten worse because of the pandemic and through COVID over the last 2 years, but it's not solely due to just the pandemic. I wanted to speak briefly around some global initiatives that CMSA is producing as well. So competitive balancing. Competitive balancing is a process where usually through 1 round or 2 rounds throughout the season, we'll look to bring like-with-like teams together to provide more meaningful competition for those teams and for those players. And so this started within the indoor season, and we had 1 round during that season. And really some of the results were fascinating to me anyway, because this will prove if it works or if it doesn't work. So what you're looking at is the average goal spreads, which would suggest if it was 6-3, the goal spread for that game was 3 goals. 3 goals different. And so in the 38 divisions that CMSA had leagues run in the indoor, 26 saw a goal spread improvement. Which is fantastic. It means that we got tighter matches after Christmas. We got more like-with-like teams after the holiday break. And you'll even see when it did increase down on the bottom of your screen here, it was really only by a maximum of 1 goal. So it was still very, very tight after we competitively balanced. And the lowest was 0.08, so essentially negligible. So out of these 12 divisions that did not see a goal spread improvement, I believe that there was only 2 that it went up a significant statistical amount. So worthwhile? In my opinion, yes, because if we're going to have more meaningful competition, if we're going to have more like-with-like games, competitive balancing is a key feature to that. Now, the caveat, of course, is doing it properly. And given that it was a first time for CMSA throughout the indoor, we could have done it a little better, I believe. We could have handled some of the provincial qualification a little better. And we've taken those learnings, and we will be implementing some of those learnings going forward as we continue on season after season. So while it might not have been completed up to 100%, it produced some great results, and it produced players having closer matches more often, which is really, really key. I also wanted to speak briefly about some of the coaching standards and coach education pathway tonight with everyone. So what you should expect of your coaches is you should expect them to have either a Learn to Train or Soccer for Life community stream course completed. These courses are an online module and a practical workshop. The online modules were free through much of the pandemic, and we saw loads of coaches take advantage of this and get training. If you yourself are interested, the training's about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. They're very economical, and it can be purchased through canadasoccer.com. If you are not interested in doing some of these community stream courses, but you'd like to pursue other licensing, you can also start your licensing at the C license without any of these being completed. There's some phenomenal material within the community stream workshops, and I've actually recently completed them as well, and to continue my learning. But I would also recommend potentially looking at a C license. C license is offered by Alberta Soccer, and more information there can be found at albertasoccer.com. That's your entry license into some of the performance streams and youth development and child development streams, and really more age and stage specific type of licensing, and in a lot more depth. Your children's license and youth license are 12 to 18 months long just to complete that license. So big endeavor, but a lot of learning, a lot of great networking, and a lot of fantastic facilitators offering those courses as well. Cmsa has produced this chart for the outdoor 2022 season. So you'll see a lot of yellow check marks, and I want to explain why there's a lot of yellow check marks. The yellow check marks are there because it's not actually written into our rules quite yet that coaches must have a coaching course that is applicable to the age and stage of the player that they're working with. So again, for these U12s and U13s, you would see Learn to Train or Soccer for Life. But what is mandatory are all of those green check marks. So our Respect in Sport is a non-negotiable. Coaches must complete Respect in Sport, or 2 officials on a team roster have to have Respect in Sport completed. We expect all of our coaches to have police security clearances with the vulnerable sector search done. And while that's not on this chart, that is a given, and it's another non-negotiable. The blue check marks that you'll see are ones required for, or courses and certification required for provincial level competition. And it was really interesting when we had a survey from the indoor 2021-22 season. A knowledgeable coach who's a good role model was the top response across players, parents, and coaches in terms of a top priority for their children and for their soccer experience. So we know that great coaches will produce great people, and that better coaches are going to equal better players. This is a top priority of CMSA, is to get our coaches educated, inform them, and mentor them in what a quality developmental environment looks, feels, smells, tastes like, and really make sure that we give players a phenomenal experience within the game. And this is what's been shown to all of the clubs here in the Calgary Minor Soccer Association. These are our expectations of them. And you'll see a couple of red check marks there in terms of making ethical decisions and a C license trained at Tier 1. Making Ethical Decisions is a supplemental multi-sport course offered by the National Coaching Certification Program, or the NCCP. And it is going to become a requirement of all coaches to complete that course as well, due to the club licensing scheme and process put out by Canada Soccer and agreed to by Alberta Soccer and Calgary Minor Soccer. And again, the emphasis here is to keep players in the game and to retain them, because teams with a qualified coach, this is what our data shows, and data from across the United States as well, teams with a qualified coach will lose 5% of kids per year, and teams with an unqualified coach will lose 26% of kids per year. So we know that coaching is a key piece to keeping these players involved in the game. And from that, we want to make sure that we're producing educational resources that supplement the development of our coaches, our clubs, our parents, and even our players. And so we've developed these 3 educational resources that will live on our YouTube, that will be produced throughout the clubs, that will be encouraging them to be putting them on their websites as well. And some of the key pieces are around the Grassroots League, that if you missed Monday night and you've got a little munchkin in your house that's between U7 and U9, I would encourage you to watch that video. It's a 6-minute video, has a really great overview of what all is involved within the Grassroots League. And it's way easier than reading the 40-page guidebook that I've produced. So I would encourage you to give that a look on our YouTube. And we've also produced a definition of what developmental and recreational programming actually is. We have assumptions, and a lot of clubs, coaches, I think even CMSA were making assumptions about what developmental and recreational programming was. We've now defined that. We've defined it for our clubs, and we want to make sure that there's alignment within that. And then lastly is the strategies for lopsided games, and that's going to be produced. It is produced, pardon me, and it will be uploaded in the coming days. I'm going to stop there for 2 seconds. I'm going to grab a quick drink, have a quick look in the chat. Doesn't look like anything yet. that means one of two things. Everyone is putting little kids to bed. One of three things, really. Putting them to bed, fell asleep, or are watching Dancing with the Stars in the background right now. So I'm going to keep moving. This outdoor season, CMSA is going to be launching a cup competition. And really, this is going to be key for our U13s, especially on this call. And what we've done is we've taken that provincial qualification out of the league placement and out of league play. Because what happens when a team loses the first 2 or 3 games of their season is they know deep down that they're not going to be competing at a provincial level. So a couple of bad games with kids whose development goes like this means they're out. What is the carrot that's left? So we've taken that out. We've developed a separate cup competition where we want to produce a really memorable experience for players. And we're really, really working hard this summer to make sure that that happens. And through that cup competition, we'll have the provincial qualification. The same provincials that every other group at that tier and age and gender would go to. It will just be a different experience for that cup competition. It's an opt-in process from your clubs and from your teams. So I would encourage you to communicate with your clubs around that piece. There's a lot more detail coming out early next week. I'm just finalizing a couple of last minute pieces and the full cup competition details will be out. I want to touch briefly on our Women and Girls in Soccer initiative and committee with the Empower Her committee. We've got 4 areas of the game that we really want to make sure that we develop, and people as well, because we know that not everyone's going to play for the rest of their life. Not everyone's going to coach, not everyone's going to referee, but we want to make sure that life skills are coming through the game as well and helping us have better people on the other side of the game. Our first piece is around the player. So the player, we want to be hosting drop-in nights, completely social, really fun atmosphere with the DJ, get groups of players together that might not play together all the time, remove the coaches, remove the adults, and let them get amongst it and play, and really put a smile on people's face again around the game. And the second piece to this is around a Big Sister program where we want to connect our local universities and colleges to our young female teams. Whether they're U7s, whether they're U13s or U19s, we want to try and embed these young women in the universities back within the Calgary soccer community and integrate them within the team to become a great role model for our next generation of women in the game and female leaders within the game. We're still working on some details with this in the background, and more details are going to come very shortly. And when I talk about that life lesson or personal development as well, an example of this is through the International Women's Day that occurred at the beginning of March. And the theme this year was around Break the Bias. And we hosted a webinar that evening with Shahiza Haji, who's a local entrepreneur and was an athlete all through her youth and growing up. And it's a fascinating chat. It truly is eye-opening. She's an inspirational person, and she's come through a lot of biases and challenges in her life to become a successful entrepreneur here in Calgary. And she uses those lessons that she's learned through sport to empower her and to propel her every single day. I'd encourage you giving it a quick watch. Again, that lives on our YouTube. And it's probably easiest to just give a search on YouTube to Shahiza as her name. Very unique and very wonderful, wonderful woman. In terms of the coaching piece, what we've done is we've subsidized the education for 12 female coaches within the CMSA district to complete their C license, and they're almost finished it now. And this is something that we want to continue to keep doing because we know that if we have female coaches, then those female players have got a role model to look up to. I'm going to pause there. Oh, last piece is around the officials. Going into this outdoor season, we had 17 youth female referees out of about 250 total referees. So as you can imagine, a very, very small segment of the population, but through some of our initiatives and some of our activities and connections, we've actually managed to encourage 35 young women to referee and take their entry-level course for this outdoor season, and they're going to be brand new officials. So we've tripled the number of officials within one season, and we hope to keep them around the game for as long as possible. I'm going to just stop there for 2 seconds. I see that there's a couple of pieces in the chat that I'll look to deal with here. Something around none of the above. I have lots of questions. Is there an email I can send my questions to? Of course, my contact info will be up on the screen at the very end. You had stated that you, sorry about that, just disappeared on me. Give me 1 sec. So people still trying to get in. I love it. 35 minutes in, and people are still trying to bust in. So give me 1 sec. Let me let a couple of these in, and then I'll look to get back into the chat there. You'd stated that you will try to reduce the average goal spread in games. You'd referred to an indoor. How exactly will this be done? I'm asking specifically because in several indoor seasons, there have been teams that played a lower tier than they should have, simply because they did not know how to / did not want to play futsal. All of our indoor formats are actually undergoing a bit of an examination, and we've set up an indoor working group with 10 member clubs and leaders from those clubs. Those that wanted to give input into the indoor format. We recognize that the futsal format especially was input into CMSA, but really minimal support and education was ever given to it. There is no coach education around it. There is no parent engagement around it. It is solely a game format that exists right now at certain age groups. So we're examining all of that. And looking to really align to what Canada Soccer is looking for out of their grassroots standards, which I'll touch on very shortly. How does CMSA monitor or follow up that the clubs, coaches are implementing the expectations of every single kid having a great experience, and they're not doing favoritism to their sons and certain players in detriment to others? It's a great question. Really, really phenomenal question. I'm one person. There are 700 teams, I believe, this outdoor season. You can imagine how many games that is, how many training sessions that is, and how many hours in one day that I have. So I would ask that when you've got the knowledge, when you've got a voice, when you've got some power at the end of the day, that you make great decisions as parents, and that you continue to try and search for the answers. And if you need anything, you reach out, and we're more than happy to help you. In terms of monitoring it, what we try to do is we try to educate those club leaders to then educate their coaches. So we know that these club leaders have got to be actual leaders within their club. Many are, some need help, and they've reached out for help, which is phenomenal, but they need to be developing coaches and shifting mindsets within our youth sporting community, and especially through soccer, that equal playing time, pieces like that, are a non-negotiable. And maybe not equal, but equitable. And equitable in relation to a certain set of criteria. And as long as that's communicated and agreed to by the players, by the parents, by the coaches, by everyone involved, things like that need to happen. We know that there are coaches that do not exhibit pro-social behaviors. So it's one of two things. One, we can continue to have coaching shortages, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we need to make sure that those players find somewhere to play. Or two, we can try to educate them and change their behaviors. I think that if these people are invested in the game, that they're giving up their time, that they're passionate about being involved, how do we educate them to actually put through what could be best for the player? And so that's something that I'm spending a significant amount of time on right now in terms of developing and also engaging with our coaches and with our technical leaders within our clubs. This led to scores such as 15-3 in the games, and this was very difficult for the boys when they lost. This is probably in relation to another piece, yeah, in terms of lopsided games. I would encourage you to watch that video and explore that in terms of those strategies to manage some of those lopsided games. We've developed 3. One of them is the 4-up, 1-up. You might have seen it. You might have been a part of it. You might have even disliked it, where if a team is up by 4 goals, the losing team would put an extra player on the field if they like. It's not mandatory. It's not forced. If they like. And what we ask is that coaches know their players, know how they're going to react, and also check their adult biases and adult egos at the door and do what's best for the player. The other initiatives are around swapping goalkeepers. So if one goalkeeper is facing a lot of shots and the other one's doing nothing, can we swap them and work on different developmental outcomes for both in the one game? And then lastly is around just mixing the players up. So if it is a scoreline of 15-3, I'm going to be brutally honest, that's a waste of 3 hours on a Saturday for everyone involved. So how do we make sure that that 15-3 doesn't happen? How do we make sure that the players feel empowered enough to have some say and to have some control over the game that they're playing? Because if that was taking place on the playground, they would be swapping players. They would be evening it out. You're good. You come on my team. You go over on that team. But as soon as we put adults in that picture, it all changes. And it fascinates me to no end. But really, it's about how do we produce the best experience and the most meaningful competition for the player on the day as often as possible. You mentioned learning life skills on the soccer field. In your opinion, what is a coach's responsibility with this respect? A little bit outside of the chat this evening in terms of the scope, but really, I think it actually starts more from the parent, and it translates into that coach as well. And so while I don't have a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old or anything at home, I do have an almost 2-year-old right now. And my wife and I sat down and we said, we are going to have these 5 values in this child. This is what he is going to be known for. And so when I think about a sporting environment, if he chooses to play sport at some point in his life, that decision is going to be what environment aligns to those values that we're trying to reinforce within my child. If that's that I believe and we would like him to be hardworking, empathetic, creative, then what environment is going to help bring those attributes out in them? Coach's responsibility at the end of the day, if it was one mantra or one phrase, is never to be a player's last coach. I hope that kind of sums that up. What are going to be the dates for the Cmsa Cup Roads Provincials? I heard May long weekend and July long weekend are proposed dates. Is this correct? Absolutely not. What we are not doing with the Cup competition is not doing a tournament style over a weekend. This is going to be a cup that runs its games alongside league matches. So what you'll probably see is, and I'm not in charge of the scheduling, but I can find out these answers. You'll probably see that seeding round that's scheduled right now. That next week will probably be those first cup games, right? So we've got a chance then to schedule those, to have great facilities, to produce a really great experience. And then afterwards, the league will continue. But you might have a cup game on, say, a Tuesday and play your league game on a Friday, right? So they will run throughout the calendar as well. Coaching course question. The courses are expensive. How can one access a subsidized training course? It's a great question. Twofold. One, your club should be helping cover these costs. I look back at my coaching journey, and very few of the courses that I've taken have come at my expense. They should be helping subsidize that. One thing that I'm working hard on, and Leslie McLeod in our office is working hard on as well, is to find sponsorship and find dollars in the budget to reduce the cost of these courses for Calgary coaches, hopefully to that amount, so that we provide free, accessible, and relevant coach education for coaches who want it. Because at the end of the day, you're a volunteer, likely, or you might get a small honorarium for coaching. So we need to make sure that you're not out of pocket for volunteering. Last two questions. And then I'm going to get back into it. Yes, this chat is going to be recorded. You can access it on YouTube afterwards. What are your thoughts about making coach education more affordable? Well, I think you just heard them. Looking to get my C license, but costs are prohibitive, over $1,000, I believe. The C license course is $495. It's 16 hours of learning and then an optional assessment or evaluation if you like. So if you've heard over $1,000, the rumors aren't true. You can find all of the information on albertasoccer.com and also through calgaryminersoccer.com. Last question, then I'm going to jump in back into the presentation. Is the Cup competition open to all teams, or is it just Tier 1, Tier 2? It is open to all tiers, all divisions that lead to provincials. So U13 Tier 1, 2, 3, 4. U15, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think you know where I'm going with U17, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's what that's going to look like. And as I say, more details are going to come out probably early next week. I want to make sure that I spend a minute here on the referees piece, because this is a constant piece throughout my first 18 months at CMSA and my former 4 years with Alberta Soccer, is the rampant referee abuse that takes place within all sport. You see loads of PSAs, you hear it all the time. We have a referee problem. And the problem is not with the referees. The problem at the end of the day is with the adults and players involved with the game. And so 3 pieces to our referee plan are around attract, retain, and progress. Really, really simple. So we've attracted 100 brand new referees, which we're really, really excited about for this outdoor season. But as with anyone else that's brand new to something, think about the first time that you drove a car. Think about the first time that you did the books for a company. Think about the first time that you walked into a job. You're going to be nervous. You're going to make mistakes. And at the end of the day, these new referees are going to make a lot of mistakes. So this is where we have the teal shirt campaign. And all of these brand new referees will wear a teal refereeing jersey for the first year. Much the same way that we put an N or an L on new drivers and learner drivers in some parts of this country, much the same way as residents shadow a doctor and do a practicum to learn and to make mistakes and to ask questions and be surrounded also by a mentor. So we're going to have the teal shirt campaign in combination with mentorship, where that mentor is going to connect with that new referee 4 times within the first 20 games that they referee. So they have someone to go to learn from, to ask questions of, and to figure out solutions to some of the problems that they're going to have. If you choose to abuse a teal shirt referee, shame on you. It's as simple as that. These are brand new people involved in refereeing. And our surveys from the indoor season, we asked referees, why do you referee? Because to me, it sounds crazy. I don't think it would be something that I enjoy. I enjoy playing. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy being involved in the game in other capacities. The overwhelming top response is because they enjoy refereeing. So I would encourage anyone on this call to not take the joy out of something that is providing someone a lot of joy in their life. They're not perfect. It's not the World Cup. They're going to make mistakes. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, and please think about that the next time even a "come on, ref" or "are you blind" is about to come out of your mouth. All right, into the piece that everyone actually tuned in for tonight. And you're probably all thinking, holy smokes, that was a lot of preamble. It was. So the U12s and U13s. I want to talk briefly around some of these pieces around especially alignment. So alignment is really to two things. Long-term player development, which, as you'll see on your screen, this provides a really tidy overview and kind of a quick cheat sheet of what long-term player development is, or LTPD. This document was produced, I believe, in 2008 or 2009, and it's starting to show its age a little bit in some areas. But as you move through stage 3 to stage 4, you'll see progression. You'll see more pieces in here. You'll see higher demands for coaching standards. You'll see game formats changing. You'll see training times. You'll see training to competition ratios, all of these things that progress. And these documents and LTPD underpin Canada Soccer's grassroots standards. So this is what they've produced, and this is page 1 of 2. And as you'll see on the right-hand side, that's where we're going with the U12s and U13s. So what you'll see is the game format. Previously, the U12s played 8v8. And so you had 5-a-side, you had 7-a-side, you had 8v8, and then you jumped all the way to 11-a-side. And so what that was is that was two models essentially meshed together. If you look at a Belgian style model, they'll play an 8v8. If you look at a Dutch style or many other countries in the world, they'll go 7 to 9 to 11. So Canada Soccer's put this together, and these are the standards that they're suggesting are best and are enabling districts and clubs to be following. So someone will say, well, 11-a-side soccer, that's what the 13s need to be playing. How are they ever going to learn how to play the game if they don't play it at 12 years old? Well, how are they ever going to develop the skill in order to play that game? And so through consultation with the clubs, we as a Calgary soccer community have come to 9-a-side as the preferred format for our U13s and our U12s. So we can now bundle our 10s and 11s in 7-a-side and give them 2 complete years there. Our 12s and 13s at 9-a-side and give them 2 complete years there. And then the rest of their life at 11-a-side until they're old and gray and can barely walk, and then they can play 5-a-side again. And it goes all the way back almost to the beginning. And what you'll see there is maximum game durations. You'll see minimum rest times between games. You'll see maximum goal sizes. All of these pieces are what we're realigning to and what we are committed to aligning to within the Calgary Minor Soccer Association. Everything is rinsed there. You'll also see here offsides. Yes, offsides are in. You'll see retreat lines if required, and we're going to talk a bit about the retreat line tonight. You're going to see team travel time. Everything is rinsed there, and that document, I believe, lives on canadasoccer.com. The interesting piece to me is you'll see here festival or league format. And we've implemented a lot of change at the U7s to U9s in terms of the grassroots league and when they get together on their match day, how that match day looks in terms of a festival format. Canada Soccer is actually suggesting that you could produce that same festival all the way through to U12 and U13. But I know what kind of pitchforks and torches people would bring out if that was the case. Apologies. Wasn't meant to skip all the way there. The 9v9 rationale. So when we look at where these players are at in their developmental journey and how they actually play the game, they really only occupy about a 9-a-side field surface. So call it 45 yards or the width of the 18-yard box by about 75 yards deep. That's really all they occupy. And yet we rent this massive field for them that they don't occupy, that they can't really cover, and they don't play over distance very well yet. So what 9-a-side is going to do is it is going to bring back technical and tactical development as a forefront and as a forethought, rather than rewarding early developing players that can run, that are big, that are strong, that are fast, and cover that distance far quicker than your typical 12-year-old or 11-year-old. This is going to result in more touches on the ball, more 1v1 play, more decisions to be made, more passes completed, and a better style of the game for the player. That's going to result in, fingers crossed, studies over the next 3 years hopefully will show better players and more players being retained in the game. It also helps us utilize facilities in a far better manner, and allows for more players to play the game on less facilities. I wanted to briefly chat about the team placement. And what happened there was we got clubs together. All the team entry happened. We sat them down in a room. We said, great, here's what the divisions all look like. What do you think? And they said, my team might not actually be that competitive at that level. Let's move them here, or let's move this team there. And so we had a lot of club buy-in, so that one round of that competitive balancing can be done before the season even starts. So hopefully we get a much tighter goal spread right off the hop. And then if we have a couple of teams outside of that seeding round to move and to reshuffle, then we can do it then. I'm going to pause there before I go into retreat lines, and just go back to the chat and go through a couple of questions. This is when everyone's going to ferociously and feverishly type in 15 other questions. So bear with me. Give me 1 sec. I'm curious why the fall season is only available for the top 2 tiers this year. We've had feedback from families on our tier 3 team. They're disappointed to not have this opportunity. We have heard that feedback as well, and we're looking into a solution for that. This was a suggestion by the clubs in consultation with CMSA as well to rejig some of this summer calendar and what the outdoor season actually looks like. If it's not appropriate, we change it, we modify, we continue to give what the players need and what they want. So we're looking into that, and we'll hopefully have some more details probably within the next 3 weeks to a month on what that looks like for those tier 3s, because we've heard that feedback already, and we're going to action that. Teal shirt program sounds great. Thanks very much. Appreciate that feedback. Are the ID cards at the Genesis tomorrow walk-in, or do we need an appointment? Great question. I don't know. If you could send an email to info@calgaryminersoccer.com, I will send some of the staff a quick message and just say, hey, there's a question about ID cards. Can you please answer that? Sorry that I don't have that information. Okay. Let's get into the retreat line, because this might be new for some people. It might look a little funny, and we might need a bit of walking through this. So a retreat line, what's the end purpose of a retreat line is probably a good place to start. Retreat line gives players an opportunity to play the game, gives players an opportunity to receive a pass without a hungry wolf of an opponent right on top of them, and it allows for better progression of the ball through the thirds and up the field. It also mimics what the modern and future game are going to require of our players to be able to do. So, retreat line. There's really 3 cases when the retreat line becomes in play. And what you'll see is you'll see a dashed line here on your screen that is the retreat line. So there's one for each team. It also doubles as an offside line, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. But sticking straight with the retreat line works like this. Say a player takes a shot and the goalkeeper makes a save. Okay? What would happen is the red team, who's now the defending team, would drop behind that retreat line. The blue team can go as far as this dotted line without being offside. So this blue player could stand over here and not be offside yet. I hope that's making sense to people. Now, the next question could be, well, when do the Reds go and press or go and defend? Because pressing is all the rage in the game right now. They can go as soon as that player touches the ball, not when it leaves the penalty area, and I want to be really clear about this, but when that player touches the ball, then the red team would look to engage and press and defend and try to win the ball back. Okay. Next scenario. Goal kick. So a shot is taken. It doesn't go in the goal. It goes beside the goal, outside of the end line. And a goalkeeper can take a goal kick from anywhere inside of their area. Good. Again, the red team would look to drop off behind that retreat line, right? And the blue team can play out. Now, I want to make something really clear here. They don't always necessarily have to play short, right? Say this goalkeeper's got great passing range. That goalkeeper can play into this player, no problem. Can play into that player, no problem. Can, if they really want to, play long into a center forward. Personally, if there's 3 players wide open, maybe 4 or 5, I don't see the point of lumping it straight down the field. That would suggest to me that a coach has got behaviors, that they have an early developing player up front who's big, strong, fast, lump it forward, go score goals, go win games. Not the point of what we're trying to do. So again, player touches the ball, and then you would see the red team look to engage. The last kind of scenario here is through a free kick to the defending team inside their penalty area. Okay, so say the ball's played across and the red team fouls the blue team there who is defending that penalty area. Awesome. The red team would drop off behind that retreat line one more time. Someone could take this free kick. And like I say, it can go anywhere they want. Now, with this picture, I want to point something out. This player, not offside. If this player was standing behind this dotted line, would be offside when the ball is played. This picture is actually a picture when I could understand why a goalkeeper or why a player would play long, because the cue and the picture is telling them that ball is on. That pass is perfect at that point. But they decide to play wide and away we go, just because that's how the animation is set up. Red team would look to press, and that would be that. Could also play short into that player's feet, and then the team would look to come in and press. Okay. As I say, and I just kind of touched on in terms of that play direct, like when is it actually on to play direct? Well, not offside, no one marking them. Sure, can we play direct into that player? Right? But as we see, the red team would defend and play from there. But as we see here in the same scenario, another goal kick, when would it actually be on to play short? Well, this player here is now marked. It's not really on. They're 1v3, 1v4, maybe even 1v5 in this area. Really difficult conditions. Who's open, who's available, who can play? Well, there we go. We can play and we can go and attack down the side. Reds would then look to enter that area and look to defend. We'll go through quickly what an infraction looks like, so what it should not look like. Imagine the ball goes out for a goal kick or any one of those other 2 scenarios that we talked about. Goalkeeper makes a save or that free kick in the defending team's area. You'll see here 2 red players inside of that area that they need to be outside of. A foul would be called. Referee will back those players up and then look to play. So I know some people were asking about contact information. They really want to send an email in. Loads of questions, no issue. There is my contact information. You can reach out via email. You can follow me along on Twitter if you like, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't typically engage in back and forth much on Twitter. I more use it to share and to explore some ideas and concepts. And then please follow Calgary Minor Soccer Association on their social accounts on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. I'm going to leave it up here. And I just want to explain that image on the left because some people might have some questions around that. And so I share that image at the end of every presentation, both with the clubs, with parents, with coaches, with everyone. And really it speaks to me that us as a soccer system and us as clubs operate usually on that left-hand side, where we pull in a direction that we think is great. Sometimes it's opposite of other clubs. Sometimes it's really close to other clubs, but we're pulling in a direction. And all I'm asking is, can the soccer community pull in a similar direction? It's never going to be the same, and we can accept that. But can we pull in a similar direction for the betterment of the game and the betterment of players and coaches and referees, parents and administrators?